I've been wanting to find out the answer to one question for quite a while now, and that is, how long can you store these fig cuttings in the refrigerator and still have them root reliably? And it just so happens that I stumbled upon the perfect experiment for it. I was going through our refrigerator out on our back porch, and look what I found, guys. 2 bags of fig cuttings. Now, both of these fig cuttings have been here for over a year. This one, I believe, I picked up last year from a friend over in the eastern side of the mountains, and this one I think was from 2 years ago. I could be wrong, but they're both over a year old. You can see, I mean, this thing was stuffed in the back of my refrigerator, but you can see the mold growing on those fig cuttings in there. That's pretty nasty. And the ends are soft there. This end here, they're still kind of firm, and I don't know, they might still be viable. These guys here are looking pretty good. There was no mold growing on them, and they look healthy. They're still pretty firm, and I think we might be able to do something with them. So obviously, one of these guys is a little worse off than the other, but we're gonna give it a try. So this is Hardy Chicago and this is Verte, and we'll see exactly what happens here. The first thing we gotta do though is get inside, clean these up a little bit. Alright, now that I've cleaned all these off, I'm going to take each one of them and just score like I did in that original video last spring. We're going to score the edges just near the bottom, just a few times. We really don't need to cut or scrape any of that bark away. It just opens it up for more room for rot, and the scoring opens up down to the cambium layer so the roots can start coming out, but it protects it at the same time. Alright, so all I want to do now is dip these into my rooting hormone, and I'm just going to use the Hormidin 3 right now because it's readily available and I don't need to mix anything up. So we'll just go right into the container, knock off the excess, set it aside. And I'll continue on with all of these until we're finished here. Alright, and the last thing we need to do is just shove them down in that little cup. So I'm going to put all of the Chicago Hardy in that cup, and then we're going to use the other one for the Verte. So that's it. We've got our cuttings all prepared, stuck down in the cup there. Last thing we're going to do is label them, and we're ready to go. Alright, so there it is, the finished product. So we've got the Verte all in one cup here, and then the Chicago Hardy in the other. The reason I separated the two is because this one has so much mold on it, and these guys didn't have any, and I didn't want to contaminate. And then also, I shoved them all into 2 different cups, and I wanted to see if the different varieties rooted differently, but over a year old, these cuttings, and just been sitting in that refrigerator in the back, and we're going to find out how long it takes these guys to root. Today is February 13th, or if they root at all. That's the big question. Will they root after sitting for that long? But I'm going to do what I normally do. They're sitting right on top of my table here. A little bit of warmth flowing up. Not much at all, just a little bit of warmth. Probably keeps it 70, 75 degrees here. And that's coming from the lighting down below here for my house plants. And then we'll just leave it in the center of that table, and we'll come back and see when there's something to be seen. Well, today is March 11th, and it's almost 1 month later. You guys are getting this instantly. I've had to wait a whole month for this, but I'm excited to show you what's going on with our little fig cuttings. You want to see it? So here it is, guys. The Chicago Hardy and the Verte. So if you can recall, these guys, the Chicago Hardy, were a little bit more, they had mold all over them, and I still don't see any roots. But the Verte started rooting like crazy about a week ago, after about 3 weeks' time. Let's look at it. So you can see roots just coming out the sides of that cup there. Isn't that so cool? These guys are rooting fantastic. They've got tons of green growth on top, and you can see these guys are kind of stretched out towards the light. It's because they're growing towards the window where the sun is, but they're doing really well, and you can see new buds starting to come up right here and all over the place. These guys went really well through the winter, through last summer, through last spring, a whole year, over a year of storage in my refrigerator. Now, I did nothing with them. I didn't do anything to preserve these guys. I just had them in a Ziploc bag, zipped it up, threw it in the fridge, and I actually forgot about them. Now, the Chicago Hardy didn't fare so well. I don't know if it was a difference in variety. I really don't think so. I think it was just the fact that they had a lot of mold and nasty stuff growing all over them. But they didn't make it. Anyway, I pulled some of these guys up. There's really nothing going on in there, so I'm going to kind of bag this experiment and say that, you know, if these figs have mold growing on them and it's been a year, it's probably not going to work out too well. In fact, we got a 0% success rate here. But these guys, I mean, this is the only one here, well, this guy and this guy, two of them that actually don't have any green growth on them. Doesn't mean they don't have roots. They're still viable and look good, but we got a really high percentage of success with these. Now, the question is going to be, how do you prevent that mold and fungus to grow? Well, I didn't really do anything to either of these when I put them in the storage, and so it's hard to say why this one grew a bunch of mold and this one didn't, but I suppose you could use an antifungal spray when you store them away for the winter. I haven't tried that yet. Don't know what that spray would do sitting in there for a whole year. But overall, this just goes to show you can store these guys for at least up to a year in your refrigerator and they'll still come out rooting just fine. I'm really excited about this particular experiment because several years ago I wanted to start trying something like this and I just never got around to it, and by accident found these guys. So this answers my question, and a lot of people have this question out there, you know, how long can you store these things? Can you buy cuttings and leave them in there for months? Well, yeah, you can leave them in there for a year. You just got to make sure that they're viable, and we might have to do some future experiments with some antifungal spray and, you know, maybe doing other things to them. But like I said, just threw them in a Ziploc bag, zipped it up and threw them in the fridge. So I wouldn't want to do too much more than that because this worked. So the next question is, what are we going to do with these little guys? Well, you know, this was all just an experiment, and I'm not too concerned about saving all these, but I might just continue experimenting with them and see what we can do. And that leads me to another point, and I hate to even show you this because I'm going to get people on here saying, see, I told you so, but the truth is everything was working out just fine, and then something bad happened with the little project that we had going on. You remember that last video about the figs a month or so ago that I took the Black Madeira KK cutting and I rooted it on top of my table without any cover and in a dry home and just let it go, and then we put it under the table and we fertilized it and watered it and it was doing well, and I showed it in one of these last few videos I did and it was growing so beautifully, and then he just decided he didn't want to grow anymore. I don't know what happened to him. The roots just started dying back, and then the leaf just started dying back. And I've had this happen with figs before, and I don't know why it happens. The only thing I can imagine is the drastic change that we made, going from sitting on top of that just gently warmed up table with very low light coming through that window and very little water left in the cup during the rooting process, no fertilizer, and we went right under bright lights into a really warm environment with plenty of fertilizer, plenty of water, and maybe it just shocked the little guy. I don't know. But I've also done that with figs, and I mean, you've seen my videos in the past, had tremendous success, and they've grown on beautifully. Why does this happen to some figs and not others? It wasn't fungus gnats. I've got the mosquito bits on top here, and I don't see any fungus gnat larvae growing in there. I don't see any gnats around the top of the cup. I have no idea. Some guys just want to hang on to life, and some don't. So this all makes me wonder, should I do the same experiment with this and see what happens? Should I take this guy and do exactly what I did with this guy, dump fertilizer and water and stick it under the light and see if we get the same result with this variety? Or should I leave it on top of the table and just continue watching it grow beautiful little roots? I don't know, what do you guys think? Anyway, within a few weeks or a month, I'll probably show you exactly what I decided to do with them. But in the meantime, I hope you learned something from this video. You absolutely can store these for at least up to a year, and I'm excited to teach myself that. I hope you guys are excited to learn it. So if you like this one, hit the like button, subscribe if you want to follow along, hit the bell notification. Have a fantastic week, guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Adios.